All right, guys, welcome to Forex Street. So it's a pleasure to have Eric Thies today with us. We're going to be exploring basically what Bitcoin has been doing lately because it's been going crazy, right? I mean, it almost dipped below 20,000. But before we get into it, why don't you introduce yourself, Eric?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thanks for having me first off, and you nailed it right on the head. I think it's been a little it's a painful year for a lot of people, but it's anything but boring. Unless you're only a fan of uptrends, then it's really boring. But it's I think think about a year ago from right now, when we were seeing a $3 trillion market cap, we were seeing a 70 to 78, depending on your exchange, cent 78 cent Dogecoin. We were seeing a lot of other things come together, and Luna is still not at zero, to say the least. And that's completely flipped now. I think not only just Bitcoin, but crypto has been in downtrend since the last 8 months in November, and it's been a little painful to watch. But it's interesting these past few weeks because maybe we're near a bottom now. It's only time will tell.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. But before we get into it, I just wanted to say to our audience real quick, right, that they can, of course, follow us on Twitter, right, at FX Crypto. And you guys can also follow our guest today, King Theus, at King Theus in Twitter as well. So yeah, so let's dive right into it, Eric. I don't know if you would like to share your screen so that our audience can also see, I mean, what we're basically talking about, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Let's see.
Okay,
Should be able to see it now.
Yep. That's
Cool.
right. So yes, so basically the question that everybody has been asking themselves lately, right? Like what's going on with Bitcoin? Where is it going next? Have we hit a market bottom? Is it time to start accumulating and prepare for the next bullish cycle? What's going on, Eric?
Yeah, and I think in probably the 8 years I've been doing, or 6 to 8 years of crypto trading and investing, this has been a pretty painful period within that. And so anyone who's still here right now, congrats, you're here. I think a lot of people have, in fact, walked away. So there's a lot of new money there is no new money in the market right now. I think we're just basically, we've been in this free fall since November. And quite arguably, it was a little bit different than what people expected. I think 2017 as well as 2014 kind of set this precedent for a blow off the top kind of end of the bull run. But this was just kind of like, we came back after the summer and we were pushing up, about to hit $70,000, and I think it just kind of fizzled out. A lot of geopolitical events, a lot of politics might have started to play into it as we hit the new year. And what we're looking at also is, let me pull up one of the charts I put together, was a screenshot earlier of basically US dollar versus Bitcoin in the past year to date. So
Wow.
We're seeing basically in the same time frame of Bitcoin in a free fall of 50% this year. We're seeing the dollar surging as well, and it's almost identical in this context. Now, of course, there's a lot that goes into that. It's not just that. Bitcoin has a lot of cycles that it goes through. We're down 70% right now from all-time high, touching 20,000. And there's this is where it's going to be interesting, is because we've never to this date, to the best of my knowledge, ever gone below a previous all-time high in the end of a bear run. When it's a bear trend, the lowest it goes is usually the previous all-time high. At the same time, though, that usually has been about 85% about down from the all-time high. So if we're sitting at 70% down and we're also basically already on top of our previous all-time high, one of them is going to give. I don't know what exactly. Those are two trends that have always been so concrete with Bitcoin. I'm interested in seeing how it plays out. The support zone below this zone at 20K is going to be 15,000, and that's going to be what we saw as the run back in 2019, like this zone down here. That I haven't even highlighted yet, because this looks real this looks like capitulation basically at this end here. This last little drop down almost looks identical to, I'll just pull up, I had notes on it earlier. Basically, it looks like this monthly candle looks like what would have been a bottom monthly candle in the previous trends.
Right.
RSI is approaching what it was in these previous trends as well. It's already below, actually. So there's a lot of cases here that kind of prove, or kind of, I'm trying not to just want to lean bullish where, people are getting wrecked out there. I don't want to just say, yeah, the end is near if it hasn't shown anything otherwise. But there are indications that if it was going to be a market bottom, this is where you would want it to be. In terms of another factor is going to be the halving, the next halving event, and that's going to be, usually about a year and a half before that is when we see market bottoms, and that puts us right in line with this year. So, long story short, I think if there's someone in the market still and you're in from 30K or higher, hang on, because we'll get back there. Just don't know if it's going to be tomorrow.
yeah. So yeah, this definitely looks like capitulation, right? Because like basically the same thing that is going on at the top, right, where you have all of these bullish news coming out. Everybody's like FOMOing in, and all of these news kind of like give that sense of FOMO. It kind of like feels that way right now, right? Where all you get now is bearish news and bearish news and bearish news. Terra, Celsius, Three Arrows Capital, right? All of these bearish news that are just
Coinbase layoffs. Yeah.
Exactly. It kind of feels like that, but yeah, I also feel the same. I have seen a lot of people pay attention to the 200-week moving average, right? And usually when too many people are paying attention to the same trade, it kind of like gets invalidated, right?
Right.
So I'm also kind of like, attempting to see if I get in right now, or just basically wait for a downswing towards, I don't know, like 15K or something like that, right? But definitely, do you think it's so for a long-term investor, right? Do you think these are the levels where you would like to start dollar cost averaging, or start like looking for an entry, or how do you see the current environment?
Yeah, that's a great point. I think because everyone has different strategies on how, on their market entries and really just how they keep track of their investments. I think what we do know is that regardless of what if the price is below the mean or if it's above the mean, it's going to revert to the mean regardless. So if a lot of people are looking at a 200 MA, I think that tends to be something that it will gravitate towards. I think I hear what you're saying with when too many people are doing the same thing, it's not going to work. And that applies, more than ever, I think, with like death crosses and different, whatever the trend happens to be. I know Twitter specifically goes through these phases of, the Fibonacci, whatever the numbers are. I think what we can expect in concrete is going to be a rebound back towards what we've seen. So at that point, it could jump back up to 35K rather quickly, but then it could dump back down to 25K and just kind of zone in and build a range. What we are seeing, specifically in this past week or two, what we're seeing is, that's a pretty big jump down. It'd be interesting it's more than likely that we see a kind of a rebound away from that. And I'll show what I mean with Bollinger Bands on. With this bearish expansion here that we're seeing across almost every time frame, it's going, the 200 MA is way up here at 38. But even the 20 MA, it's at 26. It's still that's 20% up at this point, which is nuts to think. So overall, I think we're going to range back up. This establishes a bottom. I don't know if it's going to be a local bottom or a trend bottom, if that makes sense.
Yeah. No, it definitely makes sense because that's something that I was like evaluating yesterday as well, right? Like, it seems like you're starting to get like early signs of a bottom. You don't see it from the market sentiment in the sense that, there is inflation, there is recession, right? No capital is actually flowing into crypto right now. People are like not really making investment decisions right now, right?
Yeah,
But there's definitely like the early signs, right? And that's what you want at the bottom of a trend, right? People are scared of investing, right?
right. Now we could honestly not think of it this way too, because it kind of the event over the past week seems
Mhm.
like I'm saying, it seems very like a lot like capitulation in that there's people walking away and that they're just not going, they deleted the apps and they don't care anymore. And I think that that is something I saw in 2018 in November when we saw this event down here. And maybe we're right here on this part of 2018. That was like November 16th to the 30th, where it sharply went down. It bounced back up to like the middle, what would have been the middle of probably basis of the Bollingers, and then fell back down to find a floor and kind of retest that support. I could see that a very similar kind of thing here, rather than the 2020 drop, which was all that was a news event for the most part, I'd say, because that that was a sharp drop and it just kind of went back to normal,
Right.
with everyone getting for whatever reasons. Now this was a drawn out bounce, and some could even argue that it could just go back up from here, hit here, and then just go back up. I think for people that are dollar cost averaging, people that are looking for entries, this makes technical sense to jump in. I I don't know. Now I will say, and I know you're over in Europe, and I'm over here in the U.S. I do think that we both need to be very aware of the state of military action going on in Ukraine, and that could just kind of keep people away from investing. Um,
Right.
I don't know what that looks like because that's not something that we've had in previous trends, right?
Right. Yeah, it's kind of like a unique type of market,
Oh, you're in
with
Spain.
so
Sorry,
many.
I said France.
Yeah, it's like so many things going on at the same time. You know what I mean? You have the war, you have the inflation, recession, you have the interest rates, right? I mean, you have like the stoppage of quantity easing policies, right? There is no much so much money printing as we saw, right, like last year or 2 years ago. But so now, right? I mean, with all of this that we have analyzed, right, understanding that, yeah, Bitcoin in bear markets, it tends to retrace 70 to 80%. Right now, we're at a 70% retracement, right? At 80% retracement puts us like around 14,000, right? With all of this, it's not a recommendation, right? But would you say that, like, for an investor that is starting to enter into crypto right now, would you say that is a good time to be entering the markets based on the
I,
price, though, not on the overall perspective of the markets, right?
I would. I would,
Yeah.
based on, yes, to answer your question, yes. I think um, the fact alone is that once Wall Street got involved with Bitcoin, which we all know it is now, once institutions around the world are involved with it, uh, rarely do we see them that rarely do they not return the higher rates than they were at. And if we're down, it's 60%, 70% on sale right now in that aspect. It's, I would say, limit the exposure to just maybe the top five. And I say that with an asterisk because we know with Luna that was
Yeah.
that was pathetic. There's no other way to say it. So that said, if it's not Bitcoin or Ethereum, honestly, I wouldn't. Which are both still speculative investments. If you're new to crypto and new to investing, I would stick to those two for now. Understanding that Bitcoin is its dominance in the market is going up. That happens, and so it's a smarter investment to be in the biggest coin by market cap.
That's right. That's right. I mean, that's the safest, right? Because, like, yeah, all the other projects are strong, but we saw the same situation that happened with Luna. I mean, I even thought that it was like a strong project. I hadn't invested though. Don't know why. But yeah, I mean, it collapsed, right? So the least that you want to for is to repeat with any of the investments that you have. But now let's say Bitcoin starts to rebound at this price point, right? And it goes up to $25,000, right? And then it breaks $25,000. Let's say, is there any point or any price point that could tell you, hey, this is the time where I have to get in, because I mean, Bitcoin is going back up, it's reversing. It seems like a new trend will start. I mean, would you basically wait for a for Bitcoin to regain the 50-day moving average, or what are you looking at?
Yeah, so I would, and just because I've been doing it long enough, I usually, like, my senses have been tingling that this is probably a good point to enter. And in terms of like, once it starts, if my rule of thumb stays pretty basic. If my jaw drops when I check the price, regardless of what direction it is, it's either time to buy or sell. So if I check the price and it's so far up that my jaw literally drops, and if I tell my wife, basically, if my brain's like, I got to tell someone, then that's a sell, buy sign or sell sign. On the inverse, the other day happened, last week I checked and I'm like, holy cow, 20,000. My jaw dropped a little bit. I'm
Yeah.
like, that's a point where, call it a disbelief. So it's never a bad entry if it's a disbelief. Now, does that mean it's not going to go lower? I don't, I won't say it won't go lower, but it doesn't mean that it would be a bad point to enter. I know
Yeah.
it's such a, I am a longer term investor myself, so I'm not, in a lot of sense. So if I'm handling something that I'm not going to sell for a while, then yes, this is the best point to be in.
Yeah, totally right. Because like, I mean, it could drop to 14K, right? But that's like a 20% downswing from now, when you have the potential. I mean, when understanding the potential that Bitcoin has as an
Right.
investment that goes 20% momentarily, it could eventually explode towards, I don't know, 100,000%, right? I mean, the risk to reward ratio is just, it's just too good right now to be truth for me right now. At least that's
Right.
what I
No.
believe. Hmm.
Yeah, exactly. And I agree with you on that. Now, I think, I draw on the boxes on here because in terms of like when you're going to want, when the senses are tingling that it's about to rip, or
Yeah.
like, when
When do you
basically,
FOMO it, basically, right?
exactly. So like, let's just, looking at trends in general, I'll even remove the price action itself. I think what we expect to see is, because price will go up and down all over the 200 MA, depending on where it's at, right? It's going to go way above, it's going to go way below. Now, it's way below, and we're probably at about where we were in February 2019, where it's so far below early 2019, where it's going to reclaim it, and maybe it's going to be quick, it'll be explosive, but then it's still going to want to kind of ride along that band until it accelerates at a different rate. So in terms of parabolic strength, you've got quite some time. We're at the bottom. Maybe the parabola is still inverted right now, if that makes sense. It hasn't proven that it's not out of an inverse parabola, but it hasn't reverted to its mean. Now, it's not like right now it's going to go from, right now it's not going to go from 19,000 to 70,000. That's
Right.
a sell sign if that if that happens, to say the least. Now, if we see it go back to the mean, it's going to want to hug that line for a while and kind of range, because people are scaling in. People are dollar cost, they average in all this and that. And right now everyone's probably sitting in cash. I don't know what the impact of fiat is right now, because I think stable coins, after Luna, stable coins, I've got to do a lot more research into, in terms of like what the relevance still will be. But
Right.
there's probably a lot of people sitting in the stable coins that you'd expect,
Hmm. Hmm. Yes, especially a lot of people in the space that actually get paid in stable coins and are like true investors, right? There's so many people, but okay. So basically, a regain of the 50-day moving average, consolidation right there is kind of like the first sign that the bottom could be in, just based on this indicator, right? I mean, because based on price, I mean, it does seem that we're like closer to a bottom than ever, right?
Correct. And I'd say once we reclaim anything, like in terms of like these bands, see how these bands are just straight split wide open right now.
Mm-hmm.
You want the bands in a positive slope before you really think that they're in a different point, that the trend has changed. And these are Keltner channels and Bollinger Bands, so I apologize if it looks messy. What These are clearly kind of sloping down. Now, once it reclaims the basis, then you can expect the basis being the 20 moving average on there.
Mm-hmm.
Um, once price reclaims that, you can expect these, and volatility will slow. So these bands will curl back up because they're just showing 2 standard deviations away from price. And what it means is that it's going to be reversing the bands, and you want a positive slope of the bands before you can expect explosive parabolic growth to the upside.
Makes sense. Makes sense. So, okay, I think that this is a really good summary of where we see Bitcoin right now, where you actually see, what's in the kind of like the stage of the market cycle where we are right now. But you were mentioning earlier that exactly like right now is it's kind of like very risky to go into altcoins. So you would actually stay just with Bitcoin and Ethereum as for right now. Is that right?
That's correct. And I think that's going to be at least for quite some time. It doesn't mean altcoins won't go up with Bitcoin, but what we're looking at is, let me turn the bands off real quick. What we're looking at in terms of overall change of trend, it looks pretty clear that either Bitcoin, it just touched the 200 MA on Bitcoin dominance, and this is how much weight it holds. Like basically, the percentages accumulate, and they highlight the market cap size relative strength in the crypto market. So right now, Bitcoin has 45% of market dominance, which now it's kind of, this thing looks like a market bottom itself, right? So it looks like it could go into uptrend. And when this is an uptrend, you do not want to be in altcoins, because what that means is your amount of Bitcoin is going to go down if you're in anything but Bitcoin. It's if you like to grow your Bitcoin, you want to have it when this is falling is when you want to be out of Bitcoin.
Right, right. Yeah, it looks like it's forming like a multi-year double bottom in there, no? Like
Seriously, yeah. It
imagine
looks.
that.
I can,
Wow.
maybe it's like, someday, who knows what it's going to look like in a few years from now. But I can tell you that Luna may not be the only one that could just randomly drop as far as it did, because essentially Bitcoin's dominance until it. This looks pretty scary. If I wouldn't want to be out of Bitcoin when this thing's ripping up if it does.
Right, right, right. So yeah, there you hear it right here with Eric. So thank you very much for coming to Forex Street, man. Like our audience have been just asking us, for some of the most renowned analysts in the space to come here and like talk to them, and it's a pleasure to have you here. Before we go, is there anything else you would like to share?
No, let me just make sure. I touched on almost everything I had, and I'm happy to do this, because I head up myself because I'm more of a long-term investor these days. I've been looking at entries, and this happened to be right at a point where I was evaluating whether I want to go add a lot more. And so it kind of helped me clarify my own help with it,
That's great. That's great. That's great to hear.
Yeah, and that's all I had. So it's I'm sure there's more I'll remember. I'll tweet it out. If you guys, if anyone's watching and doesn't follow me on Twitter, it's at King Thies. Happy to have you and answer any questions you may have too.
All right. Thank you very much for your time, Eric. This is everything for now, but we hope to have you very soon back in here, once like there's like a big rebound, or maybe that drop to 14K, right? To kind of like understand it and tell our audience a little bit more about your thoughts and what you're thinking. But yeah, this is Eric Thies. You can follow him at Crypto Thies at King Thies, right?
Yep. I King Thies. Someone took at Crypto Thies. I'm not sure if it's a bot, but it's at King
Oh
Thies.
man, yeah, that sucks. That sucks. So yeah, you can follow Eric at King Thies in Twitter, right? And you can also follow us at FX Crypto. So thank you very much for coming in, Eric, and we hope to have you anytime soon. Okay.
Yep. Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate you.